I've been in New York for 21 years. It feels like a really, really long time. I think painting for me was a way to be the most free. I think it's a very difficult medium. Like when I first started painting, I was like, what? How do I get it to do this? How do I get it to do that?
I've been living in New York for almost 14 years now. Oil for me is like butter. It's very alluring. It's got a really great kind of sensual quality about it. And the smell is always a big part of that too, like walking into my studio and smelling that smell. I mean, it smells like art school, which is not necessarily the greatest thing in the world.
I just moved to New York last October. I never know what to call my work. And people ask me, they're like, are you a painter? And I'm like, I'm a painter. I'm a drawer, painter.
The subject of abstraction is really abstraction. I'm not sure if my work falls into that or not. I think of the work as a little more personal than that, maybe. Like there's not a lot of references in my work to specific moments in abstraction. And there's no strategy behind making the paintings. I don't want the viewer to necessarily be thinking about painting even when they're looking at the paintings. I mean, if so, then that's great. But there's not necessarily that kind of back catalog included in the making of the paintings.
Abstraction has always interested me, even from the beginning of when I started painting. Because of that play aspect, I'm more interested in a much slower, kind of investigative, layered abstraction. Much more deliberate and playful at the same time. I don't know, like directed play.
There's kind of like a circling between abstraction and representation in my work. But I've collected imagery for the last 12 years, I would say, since like 2002. And I do sketches from it and smaller drawings. And then it's kind of a pulling together sometimes of like a composition, sometimes a color from a different image. But I do allow for play once I start the process of drawing. It's kind of like it starts from something that's an image, but then there's a lot of place for imagination and formal play. I think that there's a shared affinity for kind of looking outside oneself, but also looking inside too. I mean, I guess that inside-outside, I think, is a shared affinity with the other work. There's kind of like a very distinct use of color in each of the works. I mean, different, it seems like.
Color-wise, there's something really interesting going on. There's like a play of light that's happening amongst all these paintings. They all have this kind of interior lighting, I think, even though all the approaches are really different, really varied. But they're also pretty subtle too, which is interesting.
I think the work is related in a very strange way. And I think those are the shows I like, when it's not so obvious. You know, like where the work doesn't all look the same.